Hi everyone, it's Mari here for Studio Light. I have a project today that I'm going to be sharing with you that includes a ton of products from Studio Light, including this really cool stamp set. This is SLWG stamp 159 from the Winter Garden collection. It's so pretty. There's so many different ways that you could use this, and I'm going to coordinate that with this gorgeous die set called the Circle Ornament Frames. This is part of the Janine's Mindful Art Collection Essentials. I'm just showing you a couple of little pieces what they look like when they're die cut out, but this is just a really gorgeous die set. Now I wanted to just stamp out a few of the smaller florals and foliage from this set for a little focal point in the center of my circle shaped card that I'm going to be creating. So I'm putting those into my stamping platform, and I'm going to stamp those out onto some watercolor paper. And I'm going to stamp them with some clear embossing ink. This is from Couture Creations. I'm just going to go ahead and ink up my stamps and stamp that out. And I will emboss these with some white embossing powder. So this is some Cosmic Shimmer white detailed embossing powder here. I'm just going to add that over top of that clear inking on my watercolor paper. And you'll just see how that embossing powder sticks to that clear ink. Just going to get the excess into the pot, and then what I'll do is take my heat tool and melt that white embossing powder, and you can just see how it just creates a ridge. You can't really see the stamped images super well yet, but I am going to be doing some watercoloring on there, which will definitely help them stand out on the paper. Now these are the brand new watercolor markers from Studio Light. This is the greens and blues set that I'm using here. So I'm using some greens. These are really fantastic markers. You can just see here the greens and blues set. Again, these are from the Janine's Mindful Art Collection Essentials. Really fun to use these. These are the purple and pink set here that I'm showing you. And I'm also going to show you here the reds, browns, and yellows. So these are super fun to work with. You can use these in so many different ways. There is a bullet tip and a chisel tip end, so they're double-ended. And what I'm going to do is just scribble some of this pigment out onto my glass mat and pick that pigment up with my watercolor brush. And then I'm going to go on to my watercolor paper and just add a little bit of that color in the little wells that have been created by that heat embossing. So that light green that I added is so light that I don't really know if you can see it or not. I'm going to layer some of the darker over top of the lighter in some of the areas here, so you will be able to see the leaves a little bit better. But this particular piece of foliage that I'm coloring right now is really tiny, so that's why you're not seeing much happening on the screen, but you will as I get into some of the larger images. But I just wanted this to be really soft. I wanted there to be a fair bit of white space on this project, and I thought that this card would be really perfect for a wedding card. Or a special occasion like that. I just thought that, you know, it's kind of soft and classy looking. I thought it might be nice for that type of special occasion. So here I just zoomed in for you here a little bit, and you can just see a little bit more closely what I'm doing. You could do the same technique with a water brush. If you don't have a watercolor brush, you could just use, you know, one of those water brushes that has water in the barrel. And you could definitely do this technique with that as well. This is just super easy to do. And you can just see here, I'm just adding that pigment in, moving it around with the water that's in my watercolor brush. I do go into a little container of water every once in a while and just clean the brush and then just control the amount of water that's in it using a little bit of paper towel off to the side as well. So this is just going to create the most beautiful soft green here that you can see, and I just love how this looks when it all comes together here. I'm going to go in with this other green here as well, and I'm going to use some of that. And I didn't want to colorize the florals here with another color other than green, so I'm just again using the green shades. So very much a monochromatic color scheme here for these different pieces that I'm coloring, the foliage and the flowers. Just going in here again with my brush and adding some of this really pretty bright green to the center area of these florals. Now, there isn't a coordinating die with this stamp set, so I did end up fussy cutting these out. And once I have them all fussy cut, I will show you what they look like, but that is just super easy to do and really not an issue at all, especially with the little bit of embossing that's on the paper as well. So the embossing kind of helps you with, obviously with the watercoloring, but also with the fussy cutting as well. So you can just see how the embossing is resisting the pigment. So those areas will stay white wherever there's that embossing. And it's just going to create this really cool effect on these different little pieces here of florals and foliage. So I'm just darkening that up a little bit right against the center of the flower and then softening it out to that lighter green towards the edges or ends of the petals. And just going in with some of that darker green now just to darken up that other little bit of foliage there. Just felt like it was still just a little bit too light. So I'm just darkening that up there. You can see I'm pulling up some of that really strong pigment and just dabbing that into those little areas. So now you can see what these look like when they're all fussy cut out. Just really super pretty. Lovely little delicate embellishments for the front of my card. Now this is the Baroque Damask and Script stamp, again from the Janine Mindful Art Essentials collection. I love this stamp. It is so cool. It is just really, really beautiful. And I wanted to do a little bit of heat embossing with this stamp as well. So I do have just some white cardstock in my Studio Light stamping platform. I forgot to mention earlier that that's the stamping platform that I'm using here. It works super well. I love the magnets with this stamping platform. They just are so fantastic. They're really, really easy to pick up because of that plastic housing on them. So those are really great. And I do just really love this platform. It works very well. So I'm going to, again, like I said, do some heat embossing here. So I'm going to just ink up the stamp with that sticky clear embossing ink again. I have treated my paper with my anti-static powder tool there so that my embossing powder will only stick to that clear sticky ink and not my paper in other areas. So I'm just going to press that down, get a nice impression. Now I'm just going to take some gold embossing powder and I'm just going to dump that right over top here. Let that just slide down, and you can see that I don't get a perfect impression of that complete square, but that's okay because I'm going to die cut out a couple of chunks from this paper. I'm not actually going to use the whole square piece. Now I'm using my heat tool here to heat up that embossing powder, and it's just going to melt it, and it's going to create just this most beautiful gold metallic image for my project. Now again, I'm going back to that circle ornament frames die set, and there's a couple of, or 2 or 3 at least, maybe 4, just plain circles in different sizes so that you can cut out circles to coordinate with those more ornate frames. And I'm going to cut a couple of circles here. I'm not going to use everything that I cut. I just wanted to cut a couple here just in case. I wasn't really sure, like I said, what I wanted to use. So I'm just showing you a possible way to line those up. Now I'm taking a little bit of Distress Oxide ink. I think this is Bundled Sage, and one of my Studio Light blending brushes, and I'm just going to blend a little bit of green on that ornate circle frame. Now I'm just going to blend a little bit onto the edges of my florals and my foliage as well, just to define the edges of those pieces a little bit and add a little bit more detail in that way. And this is just a really, really simple and easy way to just add a little bit of extra color to your pieces if you want. And again, just adding green because this is really very much a monochromatic look for sure. So I really love that. I love the gold and green together. I think it looks really pretty. Now I've used one of the larger ornate circles to cut out another piece out of white. And at this point, I was just experimenting with the different dies. There is also an oval ornate frame set. You can see one of the oval dies over to the right on my desk. That's also a really cool die set. And I did do an unboxing video a while back showing all of these different products, a newer release from Studio Light. Now I'm taking one of the larger plain circles. I'm going to put that over top of a piece of folded white cardstock. So there's a fold at the top of this cardstock there that you can see I'm overlapping the circle over the edge so that it doesn't cut there. And what this is going to do is give me a card base. So you can see there now I just have a really pretty little circle card base there to start building my circle card. So this ornate frame is just going to fit nicely on there. This is what the gorgeous gold embossed stamp piece that I did that I die cut out. So I really wanted to use that larger circle, but as I was building the card, I decided that I didn't want more gold than just this one circle. So I'm just kind of trying to line everything up at this point and just kind of in my head figure out where I want to position things. Now I'm also going to use the smaller ornate frame over top of the gold so that you'll just almost see kind of like a little frame of that gold. I don't end up using the smaller gold circle. I'm going to actually set that aside and I'll save that for another project. I just felt like it was too much. And now I'm going to just put these other pieces on top, but I'm looking at it and I'm thinking I'd really like some neutral texture behind these florals. And you'll see what I do with that here in a second. So I'm just kind of trying to eyeball where I want to position things and get a clear idea of what my design is going to look like. So that's what I'm doing here, just kind of positioning things, seeing if I like how this looks with this number of fussy cut pieces for the front of the card. And I basically am pretty happy with that. I just felt like I needed a little bit of texture. So I'm going to use a stencil. This is JMAES Mask 78, the grungy floral pattern, and a little bit of my lunar paste, or I think this is called Luna paste. From Cosmic Shimmer. I'm also going to be using my palette knives from Studio Light, with just one of them. And I will link up to all of these different products in the description box below, so you can go ahead and look for those there. I don't know if they will be in stock at Ecstasy Crafts, but you can definitely check. And if anything is out of stock, you can just fill in with your email in the Notify Me section. And they are really good about notifying you when things are back in stock. If there's something that you're really wanting that you see that I've linked to, just go ahead and click that link. Now I've just used that stencil and that paste over top of that ornate frame. I'm going to just set that aside and let that dry for a little bit. And I do use my heat tool on that a little bit as well, just to speed up the drying time. I'm going to start putting things together. I'm going to use my Studio Light tacky glue here to start with the sticking of things together. I'm going to put just a little bit of that tacky glue on the back of this ornate frame, and I will get that nicely centered on my circle card base. And I love that tacky glue from Studio Light. It works really well. I'm just going to wiggle that liquid adhesive around until I'm happy with the placement. I'm going to also, of course, add this gold embossed piece next. And I'm just kind of trying to decide how I want to add that on. So these are some glue dots from Studio Light. I love them. They work really super well. They are very sticky and dimensional. So they do add a little bit of dimension when you just want that little bit of pop, and not like a ton. So instead of adding a little bit of foam adhesive there, I just wanted that little bit of dimension that the glue dots provide. So there you can see I have that all good to go there. I've added a couple of little foam dots to the back of this next ornate frame, the smallest ornate frame that I'm using here. And you can see that that paste is all nice and dry, and it's very neutral. It's shiny for sure, but it's a neutral shiny, and just adds a little bit of pretty texture. So you can see how this card would be really nice for a celebration type card, especially something like a wedding card, something like that. An anniversary would also be really nice for this one, and so on. So I like how it turns out. I think it's really super pretty. I love the detail on those frame dies. I think they're just really, really gorgeous. I am just adding a little bit of dimensional adhesive onto the back of these fussy cut pieces to give them a little bit of pop on the front of the card. And so you'll just see me add those on, and then I will go ahead and add the little greenery in and around the little pieces of floral bits on my card front as well. I just love the texture that these more detailed pieces add to the project. I think they just look really pretty, and I just wanted to pop this up on a little bit of foam adhesive here. And this piece I will actually snip a little bit shorter, just because it was it's going to be just a little bit too long for that area. So I'll just snip it off and I'll add a little bit of liquid adhesive in there and then just add that in. So love how that looks. And now I am going to add some white splatter. You could use anything for this step, watered down acrylic paint, anything that you have that is a nice opaque white paint, anything like that really that you think would work that you have in your space. Now I'm going to add the neutral pearls to the centers of my flowers. Love these so much. And again, these are from the Janine's Mindful Art Collection essentials. And so I'm going to add 3 to the largest flower, I think 2 to the one on the left and 1 on the one on the right. And the sentiment's kind of going to be over top of that area, so I didn't go too crazy with these pearls because I didn't want to put them down there and just end up covering them all up. So here's the sweet little sentiment that I'm going to be using. This says Paper Hugs. That is actually from the die cut block 22 from the Winter Garden collection. I love that little die cut block. It's got tons of sentiments and images, different things that you can use for different projects. And I love using the little pop-out sentiments in those books for cards. Works really well. So I've put a little bit of foam adhesive on the back of this piece. Just going to pick that up with my tweezers and add that onto my card. I didn't want it directly into the center. I just wanted it to be a little bit asymmetrical, kind of hanging over towards where that foliage piece is. I think that finishes off the card really nicely. And there we have just a really pretty little circle-shaped card, perfect for lots of different occasions. I think this is just, it turned out really nice, and I love all of these different products that I've used. I think they're super cool. Please check out the links in the description box below. There's also a coupon code there for you for Ecstasy Crafts. Have an amazing day, friends, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.